And we will be kicking off this week with the most important part of the show, which is, of course, the Indie of the Week.
Which is always Jerry's favourite bit.
It is my favourite bit. It's the bit that doesn't suck the most.
We got to look at Noggin the Nog last week. What could have been better?
Which
how do we top it?
Introduced a whole rake of people to Noggin the Nog who were unaware of the Nog's work. This week, hopefully, we'll be introducing a whole rake of people to Beowulf, because we're going to be taking a look at Handiworks and their library of games.
Okay, so not the crappy CGI movie.
No, nobody's ever watched that.
There's no Ray Winston in this. No.
So Handiwork Games, which is Jon Hodgson, who's a fantastic artist. He's worked for a ton of companies. He was art direction in chief for Cubicle 7 for a long time. So
yeah, he did a lot of stuff on the Adventures in Middle Earth range and the One Ring and stuff like that.
So chief cat herder, that
type of thing. But he's worked on a whole host of games. This is his own little company, Handiwork, and it's fairly stonking, I think, is the best way to put it. There are 4 games that are RPG based that we'll talk about. The main focus is going to be Beowulf, because wow, there's a lot going on with this.
It's so good.
Now it is a 5e system. Don't let that put you off. You can run this with other RPGs. So if you're a RuneQuest fan, or if you've got other generic sort of fantasy sort of stuff, go nuts with it. Or historic Pendragon maybe. Actually, it'd be really good to run with Pendragon, because then you've got lineages, because you're always developing your offspring. So there's a lot of the fantasy elements, as we would think of them from 5e, have sort of been not stripped out but ignored, pushed to one side. Everybody in it is going to be human, as far as the heroes go and the followers. But the fascinating thing is, it's a single player game, so it's not solo. It's a games master +1.
Yeah.
Oh.
There are advanced rules, or not advanced rules, but there are rules for making it into other people. But the whole point of these epic sagas is you are a hero of daring do. So when you think of things like the Beowulf tale, it's not Beowulf and 15 other heroes all clubbing some poor monster to death in the lair. It's Beowulf plus his followers / crew being picked off and getting lamped for their troubles.
Even Wiglaf leaves him to it most of the time. So.
Yeah, well, you would. It's best not to get involved with them. But there are obviously hero classes and the like that will be familiar to D&D players. If you do play 5e and you want to use this as a basis for a different style of game, like a one-player narrative, obviously that is very much a possibility as well, because there's some fascinating stuff going on here. If I get to the contents page, this is a great way of doing it, of explaining what's going on here. I think this would be excellent for people who haven't role-played before, but potentially want to, because a lot of RPG books, the rules are great, but they more or less work on the principle that everybody is some sort of bottled author who are going to craft a story right out of the gates. And for Ben, that's probably true. For the rest of us mere mortals, we need to find other ways to do it. And there's a lot of stuff in Beowulf that works like a really good toolkit. So some of it is tables based, which I like. I love random tables. If I'm given the opportunity to pick from a choice of things or roll randomly on a table, I will always roll.
Yes, always roll for it.
Random is the spice of life. However, you might be able to see there the adventure. So this is like a 270-page supplement book to create Beowulf, and in the middle of it, the adventure runs from page 96 to 135. Well, at least. Starts on 135, 138. Let's split the difference, 137. You've got 40 odd pages there of step by step how you tell your narrative story. So beginning the adventure, the preparations that you need to do, the mead hall and mystery. So where the setting is. So each part is there, which means you can sit down and you can plan out and have a structure. and it follows that sort of narrative structure of Beowulf and some of the other sagas. So it gives you a really good grounding on how you create a campaign or a story or an adventure, whatever you want to call it, for a new player. And if you're a new GM, that step-by-step guide is beyond gold in its value. I mean, it's just takes all the heavy lifting and sort of divides it up like that for you. So that's excellent. Obviously, there's also things like the monsters and bestiary section, which includes a lot of mythic and folkloric creatures from both Germanic and Anglo-Saxon sort of myth, Scandinavian. There's trolls in there. So where they first sort of crept
as
from,
you'd expect.
As you would
I think that's my favorite word that Jerry came up with was Scandinavian.
I didn't come up with it. My father would refer to it as Scandinavian, and years later, a friend went, "Where did that come from?" And I went,
You've adopted it,
and he looked it up, and apparently it's a naval thing. So
Okay.
he must have picked it up in the Navy. Anyway,
Well, my favorite thing that I learned from Jerry that he apparently co-opted.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about it when you mentioned it there is that thing for new people coming into a role-playing game. It's got the basics of like the 5e mechanics there, which are easy enough to grasp for anybody really. But if you're sitting down to like maybe your kid or like a teenager or something, or maybe two teenagers, brothers and sisters or whatever, are like, oh man, role-playing is really cool, but I can't get like a whole bunch of people to sit down and play it. One of the nice things about, and there's something that Handiwork have said themselves, is that it's just a great way for you to almost constantly have something to do every week. Sit down and go through an adventure. And because there's less pressure of you having to balance it for like 3 or 4 players or something like that, it's just you and the other person sitting at the table. I think it's a really fun way to do storytelling and to get back to that element of play that I think sometimes you lose occasionally. And, people do this kind of thing in co-op games and survival games and stuff that they tell stories in with video games. So why not do that kind of thing with tabletop games on the
Oh God, yeah.
Down, so,
the other thing is, because it's just 2 people playing, it's handy when you've got other games arranged and then somebody cancels.
Yeah.
As a backup,
you're my Beowulf buddy.
I mean, kidnap is an option.
Yeah.
Another interesting little thing they sell is this card deck. I don't know if you've seen this, but on the scroll work on the back, each of the gems is numbered. However, the entire deck of cards, those numbers are randomized, and it can go, 1, 3, 3, 4, 1, or it might be only like there you have 1, 2, 4, or so there are different amounts and different iterations of numbers on the back. So you shuffle the cards, you place one face down, that tells you your story composition, and then they use an example here where they pull out this, so you don't flip over the card, that is your story, and it's a 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. And then you flip over your first card and you read the 1, so it's a lost treasure. And then 2, it's a youth. 3, the sea. 3 again, a hearth. And then 4, a helmet. So your narrative adventure contains the hooks of a lost treasure, the youth, a sea, a helmet.
That's so cool.
Which means you can just go, oh, well, right off the bat, what's the treasure? It could be the helmet. Might not be. It's up to you. But that, again, not just for Beowulf, but for any RPG or any GM out there.
Yeah.
Random hook things like that are great.
Well, it's something I was thinking listening to this is most RPG storylines have a similar beat to them. Go to place, find out about thing that needs killed up, make your way to thing that needs killed up, find smaller things along the way which you kill up anyway, and rob. Go kill the big thing, go get loot.
It's certainly one way of doing it.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to bring up some of the PDFs. There are, or there is rather, a free kit, a free basic kit that you can go and download.
Comes with a lot of stuff in it as well.
And it comes with a lot of stuff, which is one of the reasons why I want to bring it up. So it's called the Hermit Sanctuary. And if you grab it from... Let's do that. If you grab it from Drive-Thru-RPG for the low price of nothing at all, you get a 63-page adventure. I'm not going to go through this all because obviously if people decide they will want to run it for their friends, spoilers. But we'll start off with a few bits. So first off is your Hall for Hero, which is just a little 2-table setup. to generate where your mead hall is, where the adventure
Oh,
either
good.
starts or takes place. And it's very Beowulf-esque in that there's a lot of it's noun, adjective type of thing going on, you know. So the hearth is huge.
Hang on, can I go grab a D6 and just quickly roll through this?
If you want, yeah.
Let's do it. You need a D8 and a D4 as well.
Yeah, he's already gone. Don't worry. I'll just set them out because we'll also need like D12 and D20 for the next page when we get to who's running it.
Just because it will amuse me.
Go on then. You give me your D6. So your hearth is
4.
Narrow.
Oh.
6.
Ruined hall. A ruined hall.
Then it's a D4.
Yep.
So that'll be a 2.
Okay. Crowded with
3.
A kindly kin.
Oh.
And then a 4.
Famous for lacking in.
So
D8.
lacking in a 8.
A warm welcome. Oh, well, not surprised when your hall is falling apart.
And then a 5 and a 5.
At the edge of the sea, surrounded by a great ditch and dike. So, yes.
So your people are friendly and warm to those that they know. It's very, this is for local people.
Then your ruler could be a queen, generous in her ways, a teller of tall tales.
It's a really nice, quick way to build a baseline character.
Yeah.
Because when you're traveling from place to place in your ship, you're going to run into all sorts of kings, all of little minor places. I mean, well, Ireland was full of them. And every town pretty much had a king. So you've got that.
I was going to say that's going to be really fun because I've got the One Ring and I play through the One Ring RPG, and in that you have the audience system where you meet people and you have to ingratiate yourself with them in order to gain favors and that kind of thing. So having something like that would be really awesome for setting up characters that you meet that you have to then sort of work with and stuff later on down the line. That's really cool. Yeah,
you start off with your little Beowulf-esque, what a far-flung isle, mist-mantled, rune deep, surrounded by the whale's way, a speck of footfall firmly set.
It's so evocative.
Unravelled, blades bite dulled, fates weave woe and warp and weft.
He's almost went off flighting.
So, it does explain if you don't know about Beowulf, it doesn't matter. This is essentially Bronze Age or, sort of Iron Age myth. So you don't need to know about Anglo-Saxon to do so. If you do, so much the better. It's a framework, really. But if I get on a little bit, there's some interesting mechanics. There is a portent that's laid down on the hero at the start, and it uses what they call the inspiration wheel. I'm just going to throw forward there. There we go. So you generate your tokens for this wheel that will be used throughout the adventure at the start. And you can either buy like a neoprene one with like MDF or metal tokens to put on it, which looks fantastic.
Nice.
Or you can just print one out. They have a printable version. But it's a wheel that's split in 3, and the tokens get dropped into either the player pool, the GM, or the follower, and your followers are like named NPCs who will help you out. So if you think things like Neverwinter Nights, Baldur's Gate, those style of computer RPG where even though you're the main character, you have a selection of followers that you can bring with you who are supplementary and support characters who can fight, who can heal, whatever. Same sort of idea here. Your followers should always be involved. It's not just you beating heads. But also when you're doing that, you roll dice so that you roll 2d3, you'll generate an adjective. You'll do this twice. You go adjective, noun, and that will tell you the portent for the adventure. And then the color code will tell you whether those tokens go to the GM to give GM little buff, or to your hero or your followers. And then throughout the adventure, they can be spent. So you can end up with things like a runus bearer, worthy wisdom, whatever it happens to be, a little 4-word thing, which you then tie back into your adventure. So if portents work kind of like geas in Irish myth, so you would have something foretold at your birth. So like, don't kill the dog that bites you, type of thing. And it's not necessarily a curse. If you maintain your geas, then good fortune will follow you. If you break it, then misfortune will occur. So sometimes they're viewed as sort of like if you do this you will die. It's not always the way, but these portents then sort of set up the tone for the adventure that's coming as well. And if you can then tie back to the portent that was cast, the runes that were rolled when you set off, then you get a chance to gain sort of bonuses. So when something happens, you go, well, the ancient wisdom that was foretold, I have discovered it within this realm. The book or the storyteller or whatever it was that comes to tell you about it, then you get bonuses. So it's up to you. It's a very narrative driven game, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just quickly rolled it. So I got an ancient hall with ruinous shields.
Oh,
which makes sense for your decrepit.
That fits your hall.
Your decrepit hall that you're going to run into. There are a set of pre-generated characters as well. I mean, we're all thinking it. Set of pre-generated characters, which are quite nice because they've also made miniatures of these.
Nice.
Now, as they say themselves, you don't need to use miniatures in an RPG. However, if you choose to use miniatures, they have them available. They also do stuff for Foundry.
Virtual
tabletop.
Yeah.
Those are the words, which means you've got, depending on how you role play, you've got options for all of them, really, which is always good, I feel. I'm just going to jump back to the website itself.
I know Jerry role plays correctly.
Yes. 100%, yes. As you can see, there are accessories. So there are so they've released multiple PDFs, and then they've combined those PDF adventures into a physical book. So the Trials at the Twin Seas are one of these things. There's the inspiration tokens and matte. If you don't want to just use the printout version, probably,
the metal ones look so good.
The metal ones.
I love the D20s.
Yeah,
very pretty.
So it's all about the knob work. It's all about. I mean, say, Jon's a fantastic artist, and so when they do actually make the physical components, it's right up there. Even things like the little compass rose. So just little things. I know some people will go, "Oh, completely unnecessary," and you're right, it is completely unnecessary. Yeah. But when you start getting into games, you go, I'd really like to have those.
I mean, we enjoy our frippery.
Yeah, those cards I think are worth the price of admission.
I tell you what. Because summer holidays coming up, people are going to be going off on holiday, going camping, all that kind of thing. Imagine sitting around a little barbecue or a fire. When you're off on holiday, you've printed out the Hermit Sanctuary stuff, or you've got it on your on like a pad or something, and just sitting down and doing that would be so fun. Oh,
God, yes.
If you can find a mead hall to sit in as well, that's even better. But
that is the way to go.
I'm just thinking outdoors, fire pit, big bottle of mead.
Yes. Yeah.
So here are the miniatures. They are available in 2 ways: as nature intended, cast in metal, as a full pack, including the pre-generated characters, the monster, and they all match.
Really good sculpts as well.
Yeah,
actually.
They all match the illustrations. They're also available as a set of STLs,
nice,
as well. So if you do that printy thing, then you can do that as well.
Print away.
I will also say that Otherworld did a Beowulf and Grendel miniature, which was done with a license with Jonathan Green, who did like a really fun choose your own adventure book. So if you are looking for like an actual Beowulf and an actual Grendel, you've got some options there as well, which is really cool. So, yeah.
So as you can see, if I bring up the Beowulfy bit, Age of Heroes and Trial of the Twin Seas are out. King Beowulf is currently in progress. Hermit Sanctuary is the free stuff we were looking at there, and then you've got digital packs, the accessories, annuals, downloads. They do a regularish podcast as well. Which they do
it's
for
made
a few
for
other games.
podcasts. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot going on with Beowulf. But before we vanish away from Handiworks, they've a lot of other things as well that I want to touch on, because it would be terrible not to. So first up is A State, which is, how do you explain it? Not a prison. It's like a mega city.
Right.
It's definitely not a prison. You can't leave. Nobody leaves. Once you're in for good. I believe this is the second edition. The first edition, I don't think was made by Handiworks, but they brought it over and sort of really developed it. It runs off the, what's it? Fate of Blades, is that it? Oh, I can't remember. It says here somewhere. It's Forged in the Dark. That's it.
Forged in the Dark.
Forged in the Dark, which is the generic version of a D6 based game. Again, it's a very heroic style of thing, even though the game itself is, the game's difficult to define. It cyberpunk meets Dickens, maybe.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You know, everything was a bit grim and you know, people think Victoriana, but whenever you think Victoriana, it covers a wide space of the world, and you know, some of it was quite nice. Think Dickensian. Everything's bleak. Everything's grey. People are kept down. Children are
Sounds
pickpockets.
Cool. Yeah.
You know, but then within this massive city state, where you can explore various aspects of it, you know.
So you're free to do whatever you want in the city, but just not leave the city.
Well, you know, why would you leave the city? You don't have to worry about. Oh, they used Dickensian as well. That's okay. It may be something small. You may have an adventure that's like a small little thing within your estate, block, building, whatever it happens to be. Maybe you're just trying to make things better for the people around you. You're the one with impetus and energy and you know, the ability to push and to do these things.
You too can battle against cyber Fagin.
That type of thing. Yeah. I mean, and it's probably not a bad way to go to begin with.
I mean, honestly, doing that in this world could be kind of a fun RPG session.
Yeah, that could be neat.
Yeah. The artwork throughout this is just, the artwork sells the world, I think, and explains far better than words. So you can see that the city sort of grew up and develop, and there are like ring canals that divide sections of the city, but also are ways of moving and traveling throughout the city itself of A State. So it's interesting. It's also interesting that once again they use waterways to connect things in a very Beowulfy style. You know, the water is not a barrier; it's a means of connection.
I mean,
looking at the world like these days.
Looking at the world, I kind of want to play like a sneak thiefy smuggler type that's just you know, taking cargo from one block to another.
I mean,
and Justin's made his character.
It's probably possible.
Yeah.
Just, you know, don't get caught. I think, isn't that the way it goes?
You know, you're only sorry when you get caught.
That's true.
That is very, very true. So
that's really cool. Yeah.
A grim future world, you know, worthy of exploration, I think. The next pair are very interesting. So Silver Road is a minimalist RPG.
Okay.
24 pages. It was developed using AI. Artwork and the like. So back in 2020, 2021, before people had heard of Midjourney, he was using it, and it's Creepy, I think, is the way to go. So 24 pages. You use, I think, a single D6. You have like 2 things you're good at, 2 things you're bad at. There's no sort of middle ground. You tell your stories narratively. There's no hit points when something hits you or damages you. You describe what's happened, why this has crept in, where the wounds have been suffered, what's happened to you that way. It's very much about storytelling, not about rolling dice. It's interesting that they used Midjourney. Now, they have subsequently, since the past couple of years, when AI artwork has been scraping off things like nobody's business, and they've been going we're going to replace artists. You don't need to be an artist. We'll sell you access to our AI program. So from that initial beginning, where Jon was going, this is something that we can use to make these weird and wacky things, which it was part and parcel of the look of the game, was the fact that it was sort of surreal, ethereal, ephemeral AI creations in there. Subsequently, it's gone from the second edition onwards that they're going to use traditional artists again. It's not like they didn't have access. I mean, he could have done it all himself. It was specifically at the time, it was new, and you could go in and play with it. I was like, oh, this is interesting, and this is how this works. And then subsequently, it's gone the direction.
Fascinating.
The direction that the people running the AI have taken is, terrible. They are terrible people. So Silver Road is sort of the main game, but again, very small, very light. Mask Witches of Forgotten Doggerland. Again, I think this was AI based. In fact, no, it was definitely AI based. This is a prehistoric RPG using the Silver Road sort of thing. So you are literally in a psychedelic
Mesolithic setting.
Yeah. So before Doggerland slipped beneath the waves, there were weird things creeping around, and the masked witches were the ones who protected the hunter-gatherers who were living in the realm. And it's absolute. Well, yeah, it's psychedelic. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking your character has had mushrooms.
Yeah, well,
the bad kind.
There is no bad kind if it keeps you alive. It's all protein. Don't worry about it. But the mask witches themselves have, in the same way you've got like 2 good, 2 bad things in Silver Road, you have like 2 amulets, 2 masks, and they give you certain abilities or attributes or ways of defining your character and helping you play. However, they're not tied to you. You could swap the masks with other party members, other witches, which means that your identity / personality is more fluid than being fixed solely to these sort of things.
I like that.
Which is a really interesting concept. Again, very much on the narrative sort of kick of things. You can see here some examples. And this, they used a mixture of AI plus crafted models and materials to put together the book, and you can see some
quite horrifying,
wacky stuff there.
I like that they seem to be very much champions of world building and mood and setting, which is really cool and very integral to sitting down for a role-playing game where you need a sense of escapism.
I also like
leave the tabletop and be in a new place, kind of thing. Yeah.
I also like the fact that apart from being Mesolithic and weird, there's also a 1970s version. So there's 1970s Doggerland within it, which I think is told in flashback. So you are living possibly, today, if you're a kid in the 70s, you'd be in your 40s or 50s now. And then you tell the tales of what happened down by the beach near that Doggerland place when you were a kid. Anybody who's unaware of Scarfolk and Scarfolk Council should definitely look at potentially picking up this to run in Scarfolk, because it's already off the radar insane, but trapped permanently in the 70s. Once you hit December 31st, 1979, it resets to January 1st, 1970, and just does that again. It's a permanent decade of the 70s. And I just think taking Mask Witches, that 70s version, and chucking it in there would be interesting.
So, I love how everything looks like the cover for an album from like the 80s or something.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like someone during like the 70s has just written a children's novel, which is a horror novel, but they're not saying it's a horror novel. But
I mean, all children's books in the old days were creepy horror novels.
That's true. Hello, Brothers Grimm.
Yeah. It's
you need to, I feel like there should be some Sigur Rós playing in the background whenever you do anything with this.
give me a touch of the old Glosoli. But yeah, so you get things like these. The
insects. No.
The spirits of the land. Don't worry, I don't think they can be defined as insects if they're bigger than an elephant. But this tells you a bit about the spirits of the land that people may.
It just means they can eat Justin rather than just annoying him. That's
No.
And then the naming of spirits is a big thing.
Wow.
Where that sort of demonology, if you know the true name type,
You
then
can control
you,
it kind
you
of
can
thing.
control it. I don't think it works the same way here.
Right.
I think there's a certain amount of, if you know the true name, then all you're going to do is upset them, especially if the true name is something a bit comical. As it says early on, lots of children get eaten by spirits because they know the name. The name sounds funny, like Mr. Poopy Bum. Going, that maybe it's true name. Don't laugh at it though, because it will just rip you apart. So yeah, creepy, bizarre,
Very cool,
strange.
I'm sensing a theme.
Yeah, all of their RPGs are like that. We'll sum it up in a second. I would just like to show The Forest Dragon by Rory Age 9 to give it its full title. This is Jon's son.
Brilliant.
It is a card game that has many expansions. The card game itself is exploring a forest. It's from 2 to as many players until the deck of cards runs out. So it's like every you start with 20 cards, and for every new player you add 5 cards, and then all you're doing is flipping cards and finding stuff to help you, or finding monsters, or finding equipment, or occasionally little quest givers. But all the artwork was drawn by Rory, and I think Rory's brother as well, whose name escapes me. So Rory's age 9, his brother I think was 5. So you get, like, it's very simple.
Ghost milk.
whoever has the most points at the end wins, type thing. And there's some stuff like monsters will end your go. It's like a push your luck mechanic game. You can keep flipping cards until something happens that you will end your go, or until you go, no, I'm good. Some things will appear which will take your points away, like a boggart may pop out, and
what the witch bottle does.
And the person to your these are just points values, so they're just things you find. But then you get things like the pie man or mother fox. There's a squirrel
Keep
prince.
the pie man in your backpack.
So the everything goes to your backpack area, which is the bit in front of you. The squirrel prince, if you finish the game with any nuts in your backpack, they're worth double the points. So, but here you can see some of the evil creatures that you'll run into, like the cursed crocodile knight or the wolf pig.
Dangerous wolf pig.
I'm just going to say the poison worm looks mildly suspicious.
They're all great, all drawn by children, Justin. So that's just a fun.
Clearly,
game.
Rory has been brought up right.
I mean,
it's a cool one.
Yeah, and I just like the expansions. It's really Jon does a little 10-minute playthrough video over on their YouTube channel, and he goes, you can work out who goes first. Generally, it's going to be the youngest player because they've got the greatest need to go first. And you're going, yeah, sure, why not? But it's so simple, just a little push your luck mechanic card game. Yeah. But yeah, overall, Handiwork, all of their games push narrative, push world building. With a big there are heroic characters. Obviously, when you're playing Beowulf, you are a hero. A state, you've got that sort of larger than life heroic thing. But even in the likes of the Masked Witches and Silver Road, it's probably not easy to die. In some cases, if you feel a role and because you're narrating how you're getting injured or who's getting injured, sometimes it doesn't have to be you. The onus is on you to tell the story, so you're not just going checkbox, wound 1, checkbox 2, wound 2.
It's more of a cooperative endeavor kind of thing.
What's happened, broken a leg, how's that going to impact you? Well, for the rest of this game, it's going to be splintered up, and you're going to be slowed down, and maybe not be able to climb walls or whatever. So new routes have to be chosen. It's all about narrative storytelling. Nice. And I, for one, approve.
Totally on board.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So there we go. Handiwork Games. Be there or be a rectangular thing. What? Right. We shall take a break and come right back with the news.